Joining me now, Maya Wiley, founder and president of the Center for Social Inclusion, and Avik Roy, opinion editor at Forbes, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, also author of How Medicaid Fails the Poor. And Avik, as a center-right gentleman, do you buy into this idea that Marco Rubio said and Paul Ryan and others, the war on poverty failed?
Yeah, so like Republicans laugh at progressives who want to turn Texas blue, and I think a lot of progressives laugh at conservatives who talk about poverty. But there is a serious agenda, and there's also a serious restlessness among conservatives who want to address these real issues about the persistence of poverty in certain parts of the country.
Okay, do you think that's true?
No.
Why not?
Well, first of all, I don't think we had a war. I think what we did was we had some shots over the bow and some skirmishes. Reverend Allery pointed this out, but by 1968, all of these programs were under attack. And in fact, we saw by 1988, 1981, $10 billion alone just out of youth job training programs. So I'm still waiting for the war.
$10 billion.
Well, you mentioned $10 billion. We spend $916 billion a year on means-tested anti-poverty programs as of 2012.
Right, and they have been remarkably successful, right?
Some of them not. There's been enormous inefficiency.
What's the inefficiency?
Well, if you map out the number of people who are in poverty and the amount that we spend on anti-poverty programs, in theory, that amount of money should eliminate poverty in America. It doesn't, because there's so much inefficiency in the delivery of those services.
Here's the thing. I hear this sometimes, so I want to play this out. So let's say we said, okay, let's come together. Just write everyone a check. Write everyone a check. Get rid of the welfare bureaucracy. You, how much you make? Here's $30,000. There you go. The idea that rank and file Republicans, that any Republican in office right now would support that, is crazy.
Well, crazy is not the word I would use, but there is a tension between the libertarian right, for whom all welfare programs are immoral, and the center right, which says, let's have an efficient safety net, let's deliver those benefits efficiently. And there is a progressive side which says all welfare programs are good, regardless of whether they're inefficient or not. And that sometimes
no one makes that argument.
Plenty of people make that argument.
No, so Maya, do you? Because there's two things here. There's like you're speaking as someone who is in kind of like center right wonk circles, right? So there's some interesting debates that happen amongst those people, you included, and Reihan Salam and Ross Douthat, about these sort of things. Should we have wage subsidies? Should we? But the point is, there's got to be, like, when a Republican is elected, right? Yeah. That's just not the thing that his political constituency is pushing him to do.
Yes, it's really like if you go to an oncologist with cancer and the oncologist says chemotherapy, you go into remission, and 5 years later, maybe you have another bout with cancer. No one says, oh, you failed.
Right.
And oh, by the way, that chemotherapy was extremely inefficient if you gained 5 years in your life. And a little bit of the debate on poverty is a little bit of this kind of debate. It's like we see actually huge benefits to people. Just take 1964 to 1974. The poverty rate went down.
We have that chart. Can you put that up? Yep.
Yeah, literally went down from 20% to 12%, and yet we still talk about the failure of these programs. It's crazy.
And there was this concerted political effort. I mean, that to me is what's striking about the war on poverty, revisiting it, right? Is that there's two things. There's money, there's programs, there's policy put behind it. And the safety net programs expanded Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. I mean, those exist now, and they're a big part of the safety net. And when you take them together, they reduce the after government program poverty rate by about half, right? But the big thing there is also concerted domestic political attention to the problem as a problem that must be solved.
Absolutely. And so, you know, when Forbes approached me about being the opinion editor of Forbes, they asked me, what do you want to do if you were the opinion editor of Forbes? And I said, I want to make I want to make Forbes the citadel for the anti-poverty economic mobility movement within conservatism. That's a movement that's growing. It's a movement that Paul Ryan and Marco Rubio, so you can laugh, you can
No, I'm not laughing. I'm smirking.
It's a serious intellectual effort.
It's a serious intellectual effort, but I feel like I've seen this rodeo before. Like, I think I saw it on there was Jack Kemp, and Jack Kemp, who was Paul Ryan, mentored Paul Ryan. That was his big, idol. I saw it with Newt Gingrich, had a lot of poverty ideas. I was looking back in the archives in Newt Gingrich's poverty speech, but I don't feel like it cashes out in the politics.
And the constituency is the issue there, right? Because a lot of Republicans, that's not how they win primaries. And so what you have to do is find politicians who are willing to transcend the primary voter and say, here's how I have an agenda that speaks to all Americans and not merely the ones who vote for me in a primary.
So I think what's really important here is there should be bipartisan effort on poverty, and I think it is true that it's important that we're talking about it more. I think if we're really going to attack poverty, we would be non-ideological about looking at what works. So, in other words, we look at the 5 countries that have poverty rates below 10% that spend a lot more on these kinds of programs,
right.
a lot more, and we wouldn't be having this ideological fight.
And also in
about
terms of inefficiency, like why are Republicans trying to cut food stamps? Like before you even give me any speeches, let's just not cut food stamps.
The food stamp spending has quadrupled in the last 10 years, so that's not because there are 4 times as many starving Americans.
They're not starving, but there are 4 times as many hungry Americans.
So let's have anti-poverty programs that address poverty through things like the Earned Income Tax Credit. Let's give them the cash.
And we've had states cutting their share.
Here's the thing. I'd love to run the experiment in the universe in which with the 3 of us divided program, we're just giving people cash transfers. I mean, I can't begin to imagine the Fox News coverage of that program. Maya Wiley from the Center for Social Inclusion and Avik Roy from Forbes. Thank you both. That is all in for this evening. The Rachel Maddow Show starts now, and I am excited to race upstairs and go watch the Rachel Maddow Show for the next hour.
Thank you. I'm excited to do the show this hour because we've been waiting for this day for a long time. This is going to be amazing. Thank you.